Welcome back. So in the first video, in the second video, we saw the Apache Pig example. Now let's take a look at Apache Hive, which essentially uh, lets you query and manage data using something that looks like a SQL interface. So uh, it's called HiveQL. Now, what we're going to do here is run interactively using a program called Beeline, but there are other run mechanisms that I will list at the end of the video. So what's Apache Hive? It's essentially a data warehousing software. So it lets you structure and query data using an SQL-like language. So you could have the data in HDFS or HBase, but basically this sits on top of it and lets you do the querying. The execution environment can be like MapReduce in Yarn or Thais or Spark, lots of options on the back end essentially. And just like we saw in Pig, you can essentially use or write custom map and reduce functions if you need to. What are the kinds of applications that people use it for? Hive is useful in data mining and analytics kind of applications, machine learning. You can do ad hoc analysis of data that's sitting in HDFS or HBase. Again, there's a huge list of vendors and companies using this and application areas, so you can take a look at the link that I've got down there. But these are the types of areas people typically use it. So for our example, what we'll do is go back to our password file example from Pig and try to do this using Hive essentially. So we again start by loading the file into HDFS, and as I mentioned, the command is HDFS space DFS dash put space etc password, and this time we're going to stick it in the /temp directory. Now this /temp is on the HDFS file system. And what we are essentially doing is trying to extract the same information we had from Pig using essentially Hive. And as I mentioned, we're going to use Beeline to access this data and access Hive and run things interactively. And that's the command to do that. Remember, all these are commands that you're essentially typing in the terminal window of your Cloudera quick start. So this is how it looks essentially. So I have a snapshot of the quick start window that I used, and you can see the HDFS put command at the first line, and then I'm using a DFS ls to make sure that the password file is indeed in there. And then I'm just running Beeline to get interactive access to Hive. There's a lot of commands in Hive that are going to be used, so I'm listing them at the start so that we have some place to copy and paste it from if you're following along with the video. So the commands are essentially create a table with all the input from the password file. So you kind of look at the password file, see what are the entries, and then you can just create the appropriate string entries in this table essentially. So you have a username, password, UID, a GID, a full name, a home directory, and a shell. And we are basically saying the row format, the delimitating parameter is a colon. So remember in Pig we had to go specify that specifically, so we're doing it here too. And it's a text file, so we're just essentially loading it as a text file. So once the table is set, we essentially load the data from /temp/password. Again, give it the input path and essentially loading it into the table user info. And now what we're doing is saying, hey, let's select the username, the full name, and the home directory from this table and order it by username. So essentially, we're trying to get the same data we got previously from Pig. So how does this look from a snapshot point of view? So we're just running these commands now. So first we create the table. So you have the user info table. And it says no rows affected. That's because we have no data in it. Then we load the in path, and essentially we are overwriting it into the thing, and you just have the raw data right now. Now we essentially do the select and do a uname, full name, and home directory from user info. And once we do that, you can see the backend Hadoop and MapReduce jobs are launched. Essentially, you have one job being run. You have number of reduced tasks set to 1 because we just have one host in this case. You can actually change all these number of reducers if you have more, of course. And then a bunch of Hadoop tasks starts off. And once it's finished, you'll see basically there were one map job, one reduce job. It took about 2 seconds, and it read all the data. And essentially, you get out the info that you want. So you have the username, the full name, and the home directory. And then you're looking at all the values from the password files that was just passed. The only difference being here, we are actually sorting it with the username. So you see all the A's in the front and then so on. So same example, but using Hive. And you can see even in this case, the high level commands are pretty simple, and then the backend MapReduce is handled by the framework. So essentially, to summarize, we used Beeline for the interactive Hive example. You can also use Hive command line interface, although this is getting deprecated in the newer versions. There's HCatalog and there's web HCat. So there's different options of accessing Hive essentially. You could do it remotely or on the command line there. So either way, you have a lot of options essentially, and you can write your own custom mappers and reducers, as I mentioned. So you can do quite a bit of data processing using Hive. So again, for Hive, we'll have a separate module upcoming, which will have a lot more detail. And this was just a quick overview and a quick preview of how you can run Hive on a Hadoop cluster.